All right, now this business, marketing, proposals, can kind of feel like Jeopardy every day. So I want to play it just real quick. Ready? Here's your answer, 42. You're like, wait, oh shoot, wait. Huh. You don't have enough information to know what the right question is, do you? No, you don't. And that is the first lesson in how to get the green light for your messages, your proposals, your business. People need more than just an answer. They need a reason to see you as the answer. They need the case. But not just any case, they need their case. Now, the problem is this isn't happening very often. I've been in marketing for a very long time, 20 years, and largely for proposal-based businesses. And unfortunately, over half the time, we're not getting that green light. It's not working out in our favor. And I think even worse is that 21% of the time, the client is choosing nothing. Like, you're not getting a red light like they go with your competitor. They're doing nothing at all. And I'm sorry to tell you that in your business, it's a little worse. That you're getting the green light only 1 in 5 times if you're a general contractor and 1 in 6 if it's a subcontractor. So this is a lot of red lights and a lot of no lights. But we want the green lights. So let's talk about how to do that. Now, it's important because I think that you wouldn't put all the effort and all the paper into putting proposals and your marketing materials together if you didn't feel at some level that your businesses were the right answer, right? Please tell me no, because that's a lot of work. And with that right answer, you're trying to figure out how do we show the clients who have so many questions that that's the case. But they need more than just any answer, even if it's a good one. Now, in Jeopardy, there's this extra piece of information that you get that helps you figure out what the right answer, in the form of a question, actually is, right? So if we say that the category is retired baseball jersey numbers, and the number is 42, then the question would be, who's Jackie Robinson? Right. And I know when I originally put it up and I put 42 and someone was like, what's the answer to life, universe, and everything? Yes. Sci-fi fans, yes. Okay. Now, the thing is that with your clients, these questions are really specific, right? They're like, how are you going to keep on schedule? What's your guaranteed maximum price? And can you even follow instructions? We said it could only be 10 pages. And you're like, good Lord, how am I supposed to do this in that amount of space? Now, the thing is that, I hate to tell you this, you're answering these questions the same way. Now, for how many of you are these not priorities? Well, our top priority is safety. Well, our advantages are people. Listen, I get it. These things are important, and in fact, they're table stakes, so that the clients actually are looking for these things. So when you answer their questions, they need to see these things. But they can't see just these things, because you're all saying these things, which means you can take your name off the messaging. You can take your name off the proposal, and it's not clear who's who. That's not good, right? We don't want that. Okay. So it's worse because what's really happening is that underneath all of these questions is really just one. Why shouldn't we eliminate you? Not why should we pick you. They're asking why shouldn't we just forget you? Why shouldn't we give you a red light? Now that's an important shift for us to understand as marketers because this, well, it just makes us mad and sad. Because we want to say, we've got these great businesses, you should pick us. But the whole time they're really asking, well, why shouldn't we just get you out of the running? And that's where this difference between giving them an answer and giving them the answer, you, is so important. Now, I wish that we could just say, well, you want to hire us because we're awesome. But we don't do that. That doesn't work that way. I mean, how well does it work when you tell someone, like, want this thing? They're like, no. So we have to do something else. Now, to pick up on what Jeff was talking about, we have to understand that we're not really actually talking to people. And you may have suspected that already, because sometimes they don't act a lot like people. But what we're really talking to is their brain. Their brain is making the decision about whether or not they've gotten the answer they're looking for, about whether or not they should eliminate you. And one of the first things that their brain is doing, and by the way, 95% of our decision making is unconscious. That's a stat from Gerald Zaltman at Harvard Business School. 95% of the time is that fast thinking that Jeff was talking about. And one of the things it's looking for, our brain's looking for all the time, is whether or not it sees something that it already wants, something desired. And so, you know, I want cake. Maybe you want cake, but I want you to think about this for just a moment so you understand why it's so important that we need to make sure that the answers that we're giving always have something that people want in them. Now, think about something you want. It could be cake, yay. It could be, I don't know, another cup of coffee. It could be not having had something else to drink last night. I don't know. No judgment. But think about something that you really, really want. Now, unwant it. Did that work? No, it didn't work, because that's not how it works. You will not readily unwant a thing that you want. But we can use this. This is important. This is why we have to make sure that the answers to these questions do include something that your clients, your customers want. And in order to make sure that they see you not just as an answer, but the answer, you have to give them something more, something different than what they've heard before. So you have to give them something that they want, because they're not going to suddenly unwant it, but they need something different, something more. You need to give them something that they want, and this is key, via a means they didn't expect, because that does something really important. Now, to give you an example, let's imagine that you have to answer this question in some form or another about how are you going to manage community involvement in this project. Now, it might be something that's specifically that they're asking you in an RFP, but it can also be just generally as they're thinking about companies to consider in their consideration set, whether or not you have an active approach to community management. Now, we could answer this way with, we prioritize efficient collaboration with neighborhood representatives, with regular communications and weekly update meetings. I mean, it's a good answer, right? I mean, it's a solid answer. Would anybody not answer it this way? I mean, it's, you know, you might make it fancier. But what we've given them there is exactly what they want, we think, right? Look, we've given them efficient collaboration, and we get 2 points for using 2 of those table stakes in one answer. Yes. And we've told them specifically how we do it, regular communications and update meetings. But remember, any of you could have said this, right? Any of you. So it gives them an answer, but it doesn't get them to see how the answer is you. So imagine what we said instead, that the best way to avoid issues with the community is to see them before they arise. Well, that's why we work to be of the communities that we're building in, not just in them. Here's how we do that. See the difference? You feel the difference? Because one has given them everything that they wanted and kind of nothing else. So, you know, green light for one thing, and then the light turns off because there's nothing else. But this one adds something else. So we give them what they want. We're avoiding the issues, because isn't that why they're asking the question in the first place? And then we're adding something that they didn't expect. Be of a community, not just in it. And you see what that does? It raises a new question. Well, how do you do that? And now they are asking you to tell them the very specific things. In their own minds, they're like, oh, I want to know how they do that. What does that mean? What is it going to turn into? See, this different piece is really, really important, because even though I said that you can't make people want something, there actually is one specific kind of want that you can create, and that is the want to know. Now, this particular want has a name. It's called a curiosity gap. And it happens whenever there's a gap between something that somebody already knows and something that they want to know. And when that happens, there is this absolute life force forward to figure out how do they connect from that known thing to that unknown thing. We cannot tolerate, our brains, that unconscious, fast brain cannot tolerate an open gap like that. So it's going to seek the answer. And they're going to seek the answer in a particular way. Now, I love how this Blaise Pascal put it. He's a mathematician, an old one, as you can tell by the painting. I promise that's not just like AI portraits taking a current picture. But people are generally better persuaded by the reasons which they themselves have discovered than those which have come into the mind of others. In other words, we trust our reasons best. And when we are in the face of a curiosity gap and we are trying to make that connection between a question that we have and an answer that we don't know, well, then we start to persuade ourselves. And what's key about that is your clients do the same thing. That persuading themselves gives the green light. But you see, this isn't a rational process. No matter how much all of the steps in the RFP process or however many people they put on the committee to try to make it so, it's a rationalizing process. That slow brain that Jeff was talking about is essentially telling the brain a story about a decision it already made. And so this is what happens. The brain looks for that information. Am I getting the answers that I want? And then it starts to tell a story. It starts to give itself justifications for either why it's decided to move forward or why you didn't pass the test, why you deserve the red light instead. If it doesn't see the answers that you want, that's exactly what happens. If it doesn't see the things that it wants, red light. If it sees the answer what it wants and doesn't ask another question, then that's fine. You get a green light and then the light turns off. But if you give them what they want and then you give them a question that they want answered next, and then that green light not just goes on, it stays on. That's what we want. Just like if we were to give a category in Jeopardy like US presidents and also give you 42, then you know exactly what the answer is. You're like, wait, it's Bill Clinton. Or I'm sorry, who is Bill Clinton? See, when we've done this, when we get people to kind of give enough information they can close that gap themselves, then we are giving them the story they will tell themselves about you. We're helping to build their case for you. Now, this case has a name. The Swedish call it the red thread. It's named after how the Greek hero Theseus traced his path through the Minotaur's labyrinth. And essentially, this is what we're doing when we're working to figure out what that connection between their question and you as the answer is. We're finding that case, that line of argument that they will make to themselves. And sometimes it ends up with this kind of quick, easy answer, right? The best way to avoid issues is see them before they arise. That's why we work to be of a community, not just in it. And this is deceptively simple because it feels like, I know, we can just figure out how do we come up with this little answer. And what I'm going to tell you from experience that it's not easy to just find the one sentence. Let me explain it this way. Imagine that you want to go watch a movie, right? And you're like, oh, this Wizard of Oz thing looks great. But you're sitting in a room with someone who's never seen it before. So you go looking for the description. I love this one. Transported to a surreal landscape, a young girl kills the first person she meets, then teams up with a team of 3 strangers to kill again. Yes, so good. It's also so true, and you're like, wow, this really is a very strange story when I stop to think about it. But you see, we can't write that one sentence unless we know what the whole story is. And this is what's really important, that when you're trying to build their case, you have to understand what the whole story is. You have to understand that whole case before you can shrink it down. And so in this world now where you are being asked to put your message into teeny tiny spaces, you're asking to limit your proposals to 10, 18 pages rather than the 2,000 pages that seems like you always get a chance to do. We need to understand so clearly how it is, what it is that we think, so that you can be crisp, clean, and give the answer in the smallest possible space. So here's how we do that. We essentially trace the steps of that whole case. And it starts with really figuring out what is the story that people would tell themselves. And it starts back over with that question that they ask. There's that question, which is when I ask, how do you manage community involvement? Really, we can say, well, what the question that they really want answered there is, how do we avoid issues with the community? How do we proactively do that? How do you proactively do that? And if you're thinking through to yourself, you could say, well, the real problem is that most of the time when we are trying to talk to the community, we're just actually talking to them. We're not talking with them. It's kind of a one-way communication. And yet you can say, but we understand why that creates more issues, because at least in our business, in our company, we believe, we know really, that the view inside can't ever be the same as the view from the outside. And we think our clients would agree with that too, which is why when we're thinking about this issue as a business, our answer is that it's really important for us to be actually part of the community, not just working in it. If we're inside, then we can see those issues before they arise. And you see, that leads you to start then thinking about what specific things do you do as a company, as a business, in order to allow that to happen. Maybe it's something like you hire local suppliers, and you have a local team, and you join the neighborhood association, or you have a community rep come to those weekly update meetings. But you see how thinking through those steps, what would be the case they would make for us, helps you and sometimes come up with new ways to actually do the thing that all of you do. And that is particularly important in a business where it's really hard to tell from the outside what makes one company fundamentally different than another. Because what when you do is the same, what you differentiate on is how you think. And that's why it's so important to go through those steps. Now, this is only a quick introduction. I'm happy to answer questions, find me in the hall after. But the real key here is to understand that the real shift to get that green light that you're looking for ultimately lies in making sure that those questions that we're answering for our clients, our customers, and for the market go from beyond just being an answer to being the answer, something that goes above and beyond the table stakes that they're looking for, to give them something that they haven't even realized that they wanted yet. Because when they do that, it helps to work with this rationalizing process. It helps them take this immediate thinking fast desire to skip to the next question, what are you going to do? And it allows them to rationalize it with the answers that you have given them, because you've thought through them ahead of time. When you figure out what is the story that they will tell themselves about you, and you put that into how you answer, then what you've done is you've made that connection. You've helped them see how your answer is the answer to their questions and their project. You've built their case for the idea. And when you do that, not only do you get the green light, and we'll be much more likely to in the future, you're also much, much more likely to win that final round. Thanks very much. I'm Tamsen Webster. This was great. Thank you.